Alright guys, in the last video we went ahead and set up our Loop Lab project using the starter pack. We also added the nav bar and some styles. Now we're going to add the home section area. Alright, now I want to change the title right here. You can see it says Bootstrap 4 starter pack. We're just going to go ahead and change that to, we'll say Loop Lab theme. Alright, then we're going to go down below the nav tag, and this is where we're going to put our home section. Okay, so the way that I build not just Bootstrap themes, but any kind of theme like this is I break it up into sections, and I actually use the section tag. Except for right now, this is actually going to use the header tag. Okay, so we'll have the header at the top, and then we'll have sections underneath. So let's go ahead and put a header, and I'm going to give this an ID of home-section. Okay, so in here we actually want to have an overlay because we're going to have an image background, but we're going to have a dark overlay over that image. So we're going to actually say div, and we're going to give it a class of dark-overlay. Okay, and then in there we're going to have a class of home-inner. So I want the image and the overlay and all that to go all the way across, but the content should be contained. Actually, you know what? Let me open up the finished product. So basically, this is going to be the home section, right? And the overlay and the image will go all the way over, but this right here needs to be constrained in the container. So we're going to go ahead and put a container class right here. Okay, now inside the container we're going to have our grid. Okay, so we need a class of row. Remember, the grid, you need row, and then you need your columns inside. So we'll have two divs here, which are going to be on large screens. They're going to be 8 and 4. So let's do call-large-8. Okay, and then we'll have another div underneath, which will be call-large-4. Okay, so on this side, in the 8 column, we're going to have our text, which will be an H1. And this H1 is going to have a class of display4. Remember, we have those display classes we can use to make really big headings. And we're going to say build social profiles and gain revenue and profits. Okay, and then we're just going to wrap the words social profiles in strong tags, and also the word profits. Alright, so there's our H1. If we save it, you can see that it's under the nav bar, but don't worry about that for now. So under the H1, what we're going to do is, if we look at the final one, we're going to have these check boxes with some text. Now this is actually going to be a flex row. Okay, so it's going to be you know, one item here, one here. Each one is going to be is going to have a class of dflex, so display flex. So let's go right under the H1, and let's create a div with the class of dflex, and we're also going to give it a class of flex row. Okay, now in here we want to have a div with the class of p4, okay, because this is going to be the icon, which is this right here, and I wanted to have padding 4 all the way around. Okay, so it's actually p-4, and then it's also going to have a class of align-self-start because we want it to align at the beginning. Okay, now in this div we're going to have the check icon, and we're using font awesome. So we're going to have an I tag with the class of FA, and also the class of FA-check, which will make it a check icon. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that, and we'll go to our project. Now that's what it's going to look like by default. Okay, we're going to add the styling for the checks later. Now we also want, within this dflex, we want another div with the class of p4, and also the class of align-self-end, not send, but end. And this is where the text is going to go, the paragraph. So I'm going to say lorem tab just to put some sample text in there. Actually, you know what? Let's end it like right here. Okay, so we'll save that, and it should look like that. All right, now we're going to want 3 of these. So what we'll do is copy the div with the deflex, which ends right here. So we're going to grab that, copy it, and we're going to paste it 2 more times, and save. And now we have our 3 flex areas. Now on the other side, we're going to want the form. We're going to want a card with a form inside of it. So that's going to be in the column, the 4-column div. So let's go in here and let's create a class of card. Okay, so card, we're going to add some other classes as well. We're going to want BG primary because we want it to have a blue background. I'm also going to want it to be centered, so we're going to do text center. And I'm also going to give it a class of card form, which is something that we're going to use just to grab onto it. All right, and then it needs a card body. And inside here, we're going to put an H3. We'll say sign up today. And then we'll put a paragraph, and we'll say, please fill out this form to register. Okay, and then under the paragraph, we'll have our form. And in the form, we're going to have a form group. Okay, so form group. We're not going to do labels. We're just going to have an input. And it's going to have a class of form control. Okay, we're also going to give it a placeholder, especially since it doesn't have a label. So placeholder is going to be username. And I also want to make these large inputs. So in addition to form control, let's say form control -LG. All right, and then what I'll do is copy the form group. And we'll do another one. Let's do 2, 3, 4. Yeah, all right, so there's 4 altogether. So we have username. The next one here is going to be email. So let's change the placeholder to email. We'll also change the type to email. And then this one here is going to be password. So we'll change the type to password and the placeholder. And then this is going to be the confirm password. So the placeholder will say confirm password, and we'll change the type to password as well. All right, then we're just going to need a button. So we're going to go under the final form group, and we're going to put an input, and let's give it a class of BTN and a class of BTN-outline-light. Okay, but we're going to change it from a text to a submit button. Okay, let's also give it a class of button block so that it displays all the way across as a block. And save, and there we go. Now, I actually don't want, when we get below the large, when we get to the medium, I don't want this part to show. I just want the form, okay, when it's small like that, until it gets to here. Because what it's going to do is the background image is going to get all messed up. It's going to end, and it's not going to look right. So we're going to get rid of this text when we're on less than large screens. So to do that, we're going to go up to where we have our 8-column div, which is right here, call LG8, and we're just going to add dnone, which is going to make it display none by default, and then we're going to say d-lg-block, so when it's on large screens, it'll go from display none to display block. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And there's no change here, but when we get smaller, you'll see that it'll just turn to the form, which is what I want. All right, so now we have our HTML done. Now we need to work on the styling. So let's go to our style.scss file. And remember, we have an ID of home section. So that's what we're going to work with. And we're going to set our background URL. I'm sorry, background image to a URL. Now for the image, I'm actually going to show you where I got it. I'm getting all the images from Pexels.com, which is a fantastic site for free stock photography. And I believe I searched for social. Yep, we want this image right here. Okay, so I actually already have it downloaded, so I'm going to bring it into my folder. Now, you'll have it in your project file, so you don't actually have to download it. You can if you want, but I just wanted to show you where it actually comes from. And it is a stock image. Alright, so I'm going to put it in my... Actually, I don't have an image folder, so I'm going to create one. I'm going to call it IMG. We're going to paste that in. So it's this image, and I just called it home.jpg. Alright, so let's go back to our... I'm just going to do background. So we'll say background URL, and it's going to be ... into the IMG folder, and then home.jpg. Alright, and then let's just set that to no repeat. And then we're going to add a background size. And we want it to cover. And then let's also set the background attachment. We're going to set that to fixed. Alright, and then we'll set a minimum height of 700 pixels. Alright, let's save that, and let's go back to our project, and it should look like that. Now remember, we have a class called home inner, which is right here, which wraps around all the content. So what I want to do is push everything down below the nav bar. So let's go in here. Now since we're using Sass, we can actually nest things. So since home inner is actually in the home section ID, we can just put it in like this. Okay, we can nest it within. Otherwise, if we were using regular CSS, we would have to do like, you know, home section and then home inner. But we can nest with Sass, which is one of the really nice features. So we just want to add a padding top of 150 pixels. Alright, so we'll save that, and there we go. Now let's do the overlay, because we don't want the bright image like this. We want to have a dark overlay. Remember, we actually gave it a class right here of dark overlay. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add another variable up here for the color. So we're going to say dark overlay. And instead of setting this to like a hexadecimal, we're going to use RGBA, which allows us to actually use some opacity to make it see-through or transparent. And we're going to set it to all black, so 3 zeros. And then the final parameter is the opacity, which I'm going to set to 0.7. Alright, so then down here, we're going to go ahead and add in our dark overlay. We can nest it in because it's inside of the home section. And we're going to set the background color . We're going to set that to the variable of dark overlay. Alright, we're going to position it absolute. And we want to start at the top. So top 0, and then left 0. And we want it to go 100%. So width 100% over the entire image. And again, we're going to set this to min height 700, just like we did for the home section. Alright, so it should cover everything. So let's save, and now you can see we have our dark overlay. Now I also want the form to be a little bit opaque, a little bit transparent. So remember, we gave it a class of card form. So we're going to add that here, and we're just going to say opacity, and we're going to set it to 0.8. And now it's a little bit see-through. Okay, last thing we want to style here is the icons. So those have a class of FA. So we'll say .fa, and since this FA class is nested in the home section, it's only going to pertain to those icons that are within the home section. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is set the color of them to white. We're going to set the background of them to dark gray. I'm sorry, no, this is wrong. We're going to set the color of them to the primary color, which we have in a variable. And then we're going to set the background to white. Okay, then we're going to set padding to 4 pixels. we're going to set a border radius, make some rounded corners, so that'll be 5 pixels. And then the font size, we want to increase that. And I'm going to actually create a variable for the font size. So up here, let's say font size, and we'll set it to 30 pixels. That way you can easily change it if you want. So font size and save, and there we go. So just to make sure this is responsive, you'll see that once we hit under the large breakpoint, it's going to be just the form. Okay, but large and extra large is always going to show the text as well. Alright guys, so that's it for the home section. In the next video, we're going to get to the Explore area where we have the heading, and then we have the Explore copy with the image and the text and the icons and all that stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video.